Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for a video tonight. I had told you earlier in the week that I wanted to start a new series, kind of to alternate between this one and my A-lister series because I kind of miss just sitting and chatting. I used to have my Sunday shows. Was it Sunday or Saturday? I switched it around. I think I had a Saturday, when I first started doing lives, I did a Saturday show where we would just sit around and talk. It was kind of, I think I even called it Spontaneous Saturday or something. And the reason I put so many different titles right now is because I still haven't decided on the official title of this series. I got so many cute, wonderful suggestions. Thelma and Friends. What was the other one? I can't say it. It's in French for heart to heart. Is it tete-a-tete or something? You guys have to help me out with that because I thought that one was really cute too. It meant heart to heart. But I'm just so afraid of slaughtering the pronunciation. So I didn't go with that one. And I really haven't, I think I'm leaning towards Thelma and I or Let's Talk or something. But I also am not sure on the premise. I kind of just want to do an intimate talk series with just, us talking. We don't really want to go heavy on any topics. I don't like to talk politics. I don't like to talk religion. I don't like to know whether or not you sleep with your cousin or anything like that. That's not important to me. I'd rather just talk about what's weighing heavy on your mind, what's weighing on my mind, and it's what's making me happy lately and what's making me worried and so forth and so on. So I'm glad you joined me. I really am happy that you're here. I wish I was a better storyteller. I would tell you some stories, but we'll just see. We'll go with the flow, see how you like it. I don't know if I want to open it up to panel. I'm not a real fan of sitting around with a big panel. I have had a great time doing a talk show interview that I did in the summer. That was a lot of fun, and I really did enjoy that one-on-one, and I think, maybe three at the most. I did have Kelly helping me out as a co-host, and I thought that's what made it work because she's wonderful, and we have, I think, a good chemistry together. But other than that, I really don't want to make it a noisy panel. I think that's just kind of it's kind of lost in the translation where we want to get, kind of connected with people. I think it's a good medium here that we have. And I just think it's a good way to touch base with each other and talk about what might be on your mind. I don't necessarily want to do a question and answer unless you have a question, but I'm not going to say, hey, it's questions. And then I feel like the questions it's kind of a pressure thing for you to give me a question. So I don't want to have to do that. Let me say hi to a couple of people in the chat, but I will tell you what is troubling me today and what I am grateful about today. Okay, let me see. We have Jody, Candy, Gail. How are you? Barb, Sonja, Gianna. How are you, Gianna? And Kathleen. How are you doing, Miss Kathleen? Hope you're doing well. Kimberly Pike, Kathy Allen, Patty King. Sometimes it's so crazy, right? This world that we're living in and the hub and having to get here and there. And I had a terrible thing happen to me today. I feel awful about it, even though it's something that can be expected with my harried lifestyle, trying to get here, trying to get to ship, trying to get emails answered. And for some reason, my planner has gone to the wayside, and I have about 3 of them. And it seems that I still forget very important things that I need to do. Hey, Miss Princess Casserole. Carla, how are you? And that is, my daughter had oral surgery today. Now, she's 20 and she's still living here at the house. And she had oral surgery. My eldest daughter took her to the dentist and stayed with her and all of that. So she was fine, came out fine. But for some reason, I forgot that she was at my daughter's house still. After the surgery, they had it this morning. She went, home to my daughter's house, my eldest daughter's house. And she said, okay, so you're going to pick me up after work? And my eldest daughter lives close to my work. So I said, yeah, I'll pick you up. And then, I'm driving home with some packages to ship from some things that sold on eBay, and not necessarily my auction or anything like that, but, I still sell on eBay and Mercari and everywhere. And then she texted me around 5 o'clock, and I was just arriving at the post office, and she said, are you almost here in the text? And I said, yes, I'm almost there. And for some reason, I was thinking she was already here at the house. So I was thinking, yeah, I'm almost home, and, see how you're doing and maybe fix you a soup or something, just, because she can't eat any solid foods and all that. We talk about making you feel like the worst mother in the whole wide world. And she didn't say anything to make me feel that way, but I just feel that way. I feel like, how could I have forgotten that? How can you forget that she told you you were going to, you were supposed to pick her up, and now she's having to spend another night over there in pain. Of course, she's got pain pills and all that stuff they gave her, but you just never stop feeling so guilty and responsible for everything. And that's just a horrible feeling. It makes you feel really, it took me a while. I was going to start this about 30 minutes ago. And it took me a while to get over that burdensome feeling that that I get. Maybe you're not that way. I don't know, but that's the way I am. And it just made me feel really horrible. And she said, "Mom, don't worry about it. I can stay another day. I'm fine." It wasn't a problem for her, but it just makes you feel like you're derelict. How did you do that? And that's just one thing that happened today. I was originally going to talk about something else that made me feel worried all week long, and then the triumph of the end of the week, and that was last week. Well, let me say hello to some people. You let me know how you feel about it. Do you ever feel like, it doesn't matter who else can help, or it almost always seems to fall on the mother? And even though your kids are older and whatnot, and they can fend for themselves and all of that, but there's just certain things that you feel like you have to be there for them. Yeah, yeah, you're right, zombie. That's true. That's true, and that's kind of the way it happened when I was growing up too. I never lived alone. I never lived alone. I have never lived alone. I went straight from my mother's house to my husband. Yeah, it's so interesting that way. And none of my daughters have as well. They both got married, and while they were going to college, my eldest daughter married and then finished her college, and then the middle daughter married and finished her college as well after she got married, but she didn't, you know, live alone either. It's an interesting thing, but I don't know if it's just a cultural thing. I know Jewish families. I know some Jewish families that think that way as well. I don't know. I don't want to stereotype anyone, but or maybe it's just the older generation. Me, I know you're younger than I am, zombie, but still, I'm gonna live. But anyway, it's just the way I was feeling. Yeah, yeah. It's the same way in Native American culture as well. Hey, Doug, how are you? And then last week, guys, I'm a teacher, so they do the, I don't know if you guys are in the same field, any of you who have worked in the school system, but they do the interview, well, not the interviews, the evaluations, and everybody's kind of like running around with their head cut off, and you never know when the principal's going to come in and sit there for 15 minutes. Then she comes back later during the week and throughout the month, and she sits for 10 minutes, and you don't know what she's going to say in her reports. And, it's like, it's so subjective. We all know that. We all know if somebody likes somebody more than they like someone else, it doesn't matter if they walk in and you're eating bonbons and watching soap operas. If they like you, they're going to give you a good evaluation. Let's just tell it like it is, right? And then there's the time that you think you're doing something fantastic, absolutely fantastic. God, I can't believe I showed this kid how to do this. And I can't believe he brought back this, product that he turned in and got 100 on it or whatever. And the principal's nowhere to be found. She didn't see that. So I was worried about that all week long. And I was like, I just can't do anything right. I'm sure I'm going to mess up on this one. And I've only been teaching for 5 years. This is my second career. So I'm still very self-conscious about everything I do in the classroom. And I still feel, inadequate many times. But I got a rave evaluation after worrying about it all week. And because it's like 3 evaluations, right? So one of them was like, what was it? Oh, one of them was like, I was helping this child during studying hall, and I work with general ed as well as special education. I have several classes with general ed as well, mostly in study hall advisory, what we call advisory, which is when we help them out with their issues with grades. And then the other one is a UIL class that I teach on impromptu speech. And I had been helping this child get organized because middle school is the worst. They don't even know what's in their backpack. They don't bring the backpack. I mean, they practically would forget their shoes if mom didn't tell them. And I think she wrote something about she didn't go back. She helped with this, but she didn't go back to check it to see if he had executed, which was organize his backpack. I mean, I had started it, right? So it started out with that kind of an evaluation. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. Well, anyway, it ended with a fabulous evaluation and her telling me that she just couldn't believe how wonderful my lesson was on impromptu speech, where I put up a topic, the change that you would want to see. And I just make these up in my head sometimes. Sometimes I look through quote books and all of that. But that particular day, I think I had read that title in a book or somewhere. And the kids got up there and they started talking about climate change. And another child talked about, and it's only have four, and another child did a speech on violence, how he wished that violence was stemmed, and that he's just so afraid that this whole world is just so violent. And these are 11-year-old kids. I mean, these are real concerns for them. And then another one was police, respect for police, because his brother is a policeman, where you always get the opposite side of the police stories nowadays, So, and we all respected each other, and I reminded them of respecting other people's opinions, because I have some conservative kids in there and I have some liberal kids in there. And you can tell that when the one was talking about climate change, the other one's probably rolling his eyes and whatnot. So I really want them to listen to the other side. And all of that was brought out in that particular lesson. And then so at the end of the week, I got a fabulous evaluation. I had a stomach ache all week just worrying about what else was going to come from that evaluation. And more than anything, the best part of my week was last Friday when my kids got up to leave. And I was giving them their report cards, and some of them were good and some of them were terrible. And I always give them a little lecture. I always do, whether they did well or whether they're not doing so well. And I always remind them of the fact that they are not going to be kids for long, that they have to depend on their own selves to make a living, to be successful in some way, whether it's being a policeman or being a lawyer. If you want to go into law, what do you want to do? You want to be a policeman? You want to be a lawyer? You want to write law? I have these expectations for them, and I tell them, and I don't sugarcoat it, and I don't just say the words. I really sincerely want to see these kids move up. They are our future, right? And I teach in a minority school, in an inner city school, where we have international students coming. I have a kid that just came in from Africa, just landed from Africa, doesn't speak a word of English, but we are in an international city. So the kid got up and he says, well, Ms. Trejo, have a wonderful weekend. I got to tell you, you are a wonderful teacher. And I could hear it from his heart. He was not just telling me that. And I mean, that to me meant more than the evaluation. And I had to share that with you guys as I shared it with my daughter. But it's still, it's something that really, really, more than an evaluation, more than a parent complaining and then maybe giving you a positive, report or something like that. When a kid tells you that and you can feel that he really means it, wow, it just made my day. It just made me come back today, Monday, and feeling so much better about my job, about what I do, just everything, because it's not just about teaching the kid to read a novel. It's not just about that. It's so much more than that. It's so much more about teaching that kid to go pick up a novel, to read for the pleasure of reading, to educate himself for the pleasure of being a better person, not necessarily a policeman or a cop or, a dentist, but just to say, wow, this world is out there. There's so much more to know about it. How am I going to learn about it? And that's what makes my job worth it. How do you guys feel about that? And what you do, or what you did if you're retired. Wasn't that the most important part, touching that one person? Whether, you may not touch them all, the teacher may not see you, the principal may not see you when you're at your best. They may see you when you're at your worst. And that happens a lot with a lot of teachers, because I've seen the teachers go like this. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got a 3. I can't believe I got a 2. And then I can't, and then the next time they're like, oh my gosh, I got a 4, because we're graded from 1 to 4. So it's sad that we have to depend on that, but then it is a merit-based job. It is something that you need to perform, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything. It's stressful, but I think it's very necessary. Let me see what your thoughts are on that. More absolutely than the performance evaluations. Yeah, most definitely. And from the parents too, when the parents see what you're doing with, especially the special needs kids. But I know that's important. I think I relayed a story one time about my son's 4th grade teacher, who was also his 3rd grade teacher. And I ran into her 25 years later. She was subbing, retired, and she was actually a sub. And like I said, this is my 2nd career, so I never knew her in the circles of teaching. But she came into our school, at another school I worked at, and she recognized me and I recognized her. And the next day she said, look, I had bought her a James Avery ring with the little students on desks. It's a retired piece, but it's a band and it's got students on desks all around like a little circle. And she told me, I cannot wear it anymore because of my arthritis and my bony fingers now. It will not go in, but I wear it on a chain. And she said, I want you to know that meant so much to me she said, but more than that, what meant more to me was the note that you wrote. I still have the note and it was because I thought she was a wonderful teacher. She touched my son in so many different ways in teaching him how to be more of a team player. He was very shy. He didn't like doing the group work that they, were trying to get into the schools. And it's a wonderful thing because that's the way people work these days. But she did a lot of things for my son in that way. And that was my way of thanking her. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether you give a teacher a note or a gift, but it's important to know that you're appreciated, to know you touch people in those ways. I think it's the most important thing. But then there's still some things that are always weighing on you, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I forgot to do that. And you just have to. I don't know. You just have to accept that we're human, right? And we're going to drop the ball. And there's no such thing as multitasking. I honestly was going to bring that up in the A-listers next time about multitasking. So I'll be alternating with this show and my A-listers because there's a lot of tools out there now where you can list here and you can list there. And I think I watched a couple of shows where someone was saying, there is no such thing as multitasking. You cannot drive and talk. You can't even drive and talk on the phone because it might get heated and your mind is not there. And there's been science about it. Even I think they've even said that drunk drivers drive better than someone who's actually texting or talking on the phone. It's just not possible. Whereas a drunk driver is really concentrating on trying to stay on that lane, I don't know, but there's been studies done about it. It's crazy. Oh, it's absolutely horrible. You just and it's funny because people are always asking me, well, where do you sell more? Do you sell more on Etsy? And my answer is always, I sell more where I dedicate the time. It's just where I do better. If I happen to list a lot of things on Etsy, that's where I'm going to sell it that month or whatever. If I happen to, like the other day when I got that little camera thing, that box, I took like 30 pictures and I sold like 3 things because I took those pictures, I put them up on eBay because I didn't want to be back and forth. I just wanted to get it done. And, really, those pictures were fantastic. They were definitely a game changer. And that's what I did. I dedicated that night to taking the pictures. The next night I listed on one site, I think maybe 2. The next day I put a couple on Etsy, but that's where I sold. So it's crazy, but that's the truth. You really, and you got to stop feeling guilty about making a mistake. We forget, planners or no planners. I still forget. I have to have at least a calendar here and a calendar there. And I have reminders here. I have an alarm probably every hour to stop at the post office because I'll pass it. I'll forget. Or to, stop and get some iced tea or whatever I need. It's crazy. But anyway, what do you guys think about having a panel? Do you just like a one-on-one? I kind of like a one-on-one thing. Well, let me know what you think. But I do definitely. Hey, Miss Tammy, how are you? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I sometimes get upset with those kids so much, but I feel like I'm their mother. Honestly, I feel like because I'm a grandmother now and I've seen my kids grow up and I've seen the things that they went through in school and they bring so much baggage with them and I know that. I know that they bring baggage with them. It's a different generation. And I have so many different parents. I have parents that are hands-on and they're like no devices. We don't want any more distractions. We're trying to teach our kid this, but the media is teaching them that, so we don't want to have anything to do with the devices, right? And then there's other parents who are like, he doesn't want to go to school. I don't want to fight with him about going to school, so they don't bring them to school, and yet we're having to provide special education services. We're having to fill out all of this paper that's required by law because initially he was on special education, but now she's not bringing him to school because she has given him the power to say whether he's coming to school or not. And he's 11 years old. I mean, I don't understand it. I really, really don't. But that's what we deal with. And then, like I said, it is an international school. It's an international city. We're the most diverse city. And in my particular school, I have kids that live in mansions, literally $3 million mansions, and I have some that are apartment dwellers. And yet they're mixed in there and, they're just sinking or swimming. And I have some of the rich kids that could care less about education. I have some that have the best tutors and they do well. And then I have some kids that are from the wrong side of the track, so to speak, that are doing everything in their power to do better. And then there's some that have checked out because their parents have checked out. And yet we still, like our principals tell us and the leaders tell us, they send us their best. Parents send us their best kids that they can't go back and make another one. It's what we got to deal with. And that weighs heavy on my mind. So when I have the opportunity for 20 or 30 minutes to sit there and talk to them about their grades, they're going to get a lecture. They're going to get a pep talk. And I hope that they grow up remembering that. I mean, I have teachers that I remember. Do you guys remember a special teacher that nudged you in the right way? I had one and I went to Catholic school, so believe me, they weren't afraid to pull out that rosary. But I didn't really get, I don't have horrible memories about that. I have good memories. I really do. I have good memories of teachers that cared about us. And, I had bad memories when I went to public school my last 2 years. I have bad memories of teachers who sat there and ate onion dip and chips and just handed out busy work and never went to the board. So, it's what we face in public education. It really is. Oh, Lori, let's see what Lori says. I remind you of one teacher that makes a difference I had in my whole career, and she had a major impact on me. That's wonderful to hear, Lori. That's wonderful to hear. I still remember mine. Sister Claudia was her name. And I remember her telling me, pick up, because I used to write like this. Like I would put my head down. I don't know if you ever see kids do that, but I would like put my head down real low. And she would pick my head up and she'd say, are you writing with your nose? She always embarrassed me doing that, right? But she taught this class on speed reading and vocabulary building, and that really built a love for literature for me. I just love that. And she was funny. She had this quirky sense of humor. So there's just something really, really special about that particular teacher that I remember. And she taught me to love reading. And I didn't become, a professor or anything major, but I have always loved learning. And that's why I went back to teaching. I think that's why I always wanted to be a teacher, even when I did other things for 20 years. Yeah, absolutely. Your kindergarten teacher was at your wedding? Oh, Miss Kelly, that's fabulous. Hey, Vanessa, good to see you. I hope y'all are doing well. We're still praying here real hard for you guys. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. That reminds me, Kelly, we had a teacher here that it was one of my daughter's favorite teachers. Her name, I'll say, was French. That's her name. And my daughter would say, "Oh my gosh, I wish Miss French was still my teacher." She went all through fifth grade, and Miss French was her second grade teacher. She could never be her teacher again. But every Christmas, she'd take her a dive of chocolates. And Miss French was the one who told me, because I think she went back to see her when she was already a teenager in an adult, basically. And she said, "Oh, I recognized her like this." She says, "I never forget a student." She goes, "There's something in the eyes or something, but every time I see one, if they come up, I know who they are. I go right back to third grade with them." It's so funny. It really is. Yours was Miss Kuchik and continued a friendship. That's fabulous. Oh, and she passed away. Yeah. I think that's why I mean that's why teachers do it, really. And I hate to see when teachers start getting burned out, and they usually know it, and they're smart enough to leave because like I said, a lot of times people think that I've been in this field a long time, especially when I'm around colleagues, and I'll hear. That's why I don't hang out in the teachers' lounge. I don't like to hear shop talk. First of all, I really don't, and I don't want to be prejudiced against a kid that I haven't seen yet or that I haven't taught yet. I want him to prove himself to me first because they're different with all of them. They really are. And once you stereotype that kid as a bad kid, you've lost him. And I think they just want a chance. I mean, I'm not saying they're all going to be saved. They may not be, but I think they all deserve that chance to come in with a clean slate. So I don't like to hear that. I really don't. And, especially with the children with special needs, because it takes so much more time to teach these kids. It takes repetition. And when I have to go in there and a teacher will tell me, "Well, I don't know what you're going to do because she can't read." Well, you know what I did? I bought her 2 books on Amazon, the sister books. If you guys have any fifth graders or sixth graders, they love those sister books. I bought her 2 of those books because she was looking at it as a graphic novel, and I saw her looking at it, and I said, I started asking her if she could stay a couple of minutes with me after school. She did. Got to know her in 6th grade. She's now in 8th grade, and she's now reading. I'm not saying I had anything major to do with it, but I bought her 2 books on Amazon, brand new. She didn't have to borrow them from the library. She didn't have to see if somebody else would lend it to her. She had 2 beautiful books to take home with her that summer. And I looked at her because she's no longer my student. I follow them only through their grade level. And I had started with her at 6, and now they employed another teacher to help us out. And I didn't follow her, but I know her grades because I check them, and she's in my study hall, and she reads. And every time I see that teacher, all I think about is when she told me, "I don't know what you're going to do because you can't read." Well, we're going to teach her how to read. It may be 6th grade, it may be 8th grade, but she's going to learn to read. And because she had autism, and all kids with autism are different, some are genius level, so let's not stereotype them either. She had issues with communication. She had issues with verbal things, and she could not read, but now she does. And now she's making passing grades, 70s and 80s in her English literature classes. And I'm so, so happy for her. I really, really am, because I could see the pleasure that she got from those books. And all she needed was a chance to practice and keep reading and keep reading, and it would come to her. I mean, we didn't all learn how to ride a bike the first time we got on it either. Let me see. Before I taught, Gail, I did construction. I worked for S&B and Brown and Root. That's when I really made some good money, more than I make now. Honestly, I was in construction, and I used to work a lot of hours. I was single, and I worked 80 hours a week. So it was a lot of hours put in, and I was single. And of course, that money goes a long way. I did that. I also worked for a stockbroker. I ran a stockbroker's office for many years, clerical, but while I was working for him, I was going to school. And then I also worked as a teacher's assistant, paraprofessional. So that was my foray into education. And I actually went into it because I wanted to teach at this particular school that I wanted my daughter to go to. And that's one of the reasons that I applied at that school. And that's when I got into special education. So that's what I used to do. And then I went back to get my teaching degree. And another thing I did was work at an autism clinic. I left paraprofessional for about a year or two while I finished up because I found a wonderful job really close to my home. And I had realized I really liked working with special needs children, especially the severe cases. So I wanted to learn more about ABA, and that's what they were teaching at that particular clinic. And that was the methods they were using. They had an in-house ABA therapist, and that's what I did till I finally got my degree, and then I started teaching. Let me see. Both so smart, just so different. And your kids, Julie? You don't remember the names of some of the teachers except the ones in college? Oh, I had a wonderful history professor. Oh my gosh, she brought it to life. I used to think history was so dull until I took American history with her. She was amazing. She was at U of H. I have a son who has a master's history teacher going for doctorate. Fabulous. And the other one has dyslexia and has struggled in school. Yes, absolutely. Put an engine together with his eyes closed. That's amazing, isn't it, Joy? I taught a child with autism who couldn't speak, and he was 16 at the clinic, and he was so, so bright. He could put one of those puzzles, those jigsaw puzzles with like 200-300 pieces together. By the end of the day, he had it together. I mean, like in 2 or 3 hours. But he couldn't remember how to tie his shoes sometimes, or, he's got what they call splinter skills. But he was so bright, and oh my gosh, how I prayed that he would one day speak. We did teach him to communicate, though, so there is lots of wishes that come true. They really do, because with the devices nowadays, people use these. There's apps where kids can tell you what they want, tell you how much they want, tell you to leave them alone. It's amazing what they can do for nonverbal kids nowadays. And they can, and my, the school districts that I worked for, the head of the IT had autism or Asperger's, I believe. And you could see it in the way he spoke and everything, but he was bright as a light, absolutely bright. Yeah. Let me see who else. Anybody else have any questions that I missed? Oh, in the UK. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hate exams, and we're going into that in the spring. I had a kid at kindergarten level. They were testing them for GT, gifted and talented, and the poor kid threw up. She was that nervous in kindergarten. I was like, no, there's something wrong with this system. That is too much pressure for a kid. Oh, did you, Laura? You worked with the local school district? Yeah, I used to volunteer too at my kids' schools. I used to love to do that. Their chess club and the library, reading to them. I've always loved that. Do you like jigsaw puzzles? Yeah. Oh, my husband loves them. I don't. I cannot do a puzzle to save my life. I can't even do a 20-piece puzzle. They drive me crazy. Oh, how fabulous, Denise. Yes, and cursive is so important. They're learning now that it's so important for people with dyslexia to learn cursive. I went to a training for 2 weeks for dyslexia, and the first thing they taught us to do that we were supposed to be doing every 20 minutes, and that's the thing, you rarely have time to do everything they want you to do, was to use cursive, because it takes that thought process to make those words, even if they make them in the air. And that makes, for some reason, it makes a connection with sound and the word and all of that. So it's fabulous. So do that with any of your struggling readers. It really does help. And or anytime you're just, you know how it is. I know if you guys remember studying in college, just writing things down, it makes better connections for you to memorize it. Oh my goodness, in 3rd grade you learned that he couldn't read. Exactly. At no cost. I have my coworker, the gentleman that I told you that's a math teacher, he stays for after school, he stays early in the morning, and he just loves teaching his subject of math too, and he makes it fun as well. He makes every little triumph. This is what's so fun about watching a good teacher. Every little step is, it's an accolade. It's like a wonderful accomplishment. It's a reinforcement. Well, look, you did that. I can't believe you did that. That's fabulous. You know how to do that. They have to be told that they're doing something right. Kids get so tired of just, you're doing that wrong. No, that's wrong. How come you didn't remember that? Didn't I tell you that already? I can't stand when somebody says that to me, much less I'm never going to say that to a kid. Didn't I tell you that already? Well, you know what? Maybe you need to tell me 2 more times, right? How do you know how someone has Asperger's or autism? Well, I can't diagnose it as and we can't diagnose it at all. The only ones that can are the diags or a doctor, a medical doctor. But they are both considered on the spectrum now. I don't believe they even call it Asperger's anymore. It's just all called autism spectrum disorders, because they can go from severely autistic, where there's nonverbal, very, very problematic with functioning in a regular classroom. Some of them have never been potty trained. Some of them have the motor issues, the fine motor issues, the gross motor issues. All of that can play into that. And then on top of that, they say that, excuse me, that, seizure disorder is a cousin to some of the autism disorders. So on top of that, some of the children have seizures constantly, and that's constantly, deteriorating some of those brain cells and all of that. So it's such a big spectrum. And then I have people with what they call the people with Asperger's are sometimes very high functioning, and can do math and can do all kinds of things, can graduate college, become professors, but they have trouble communicating with people. They have trouble reading social cues. They can't make friends. They don't know how to carry on a conversation. If they happen to love Charles Dickens, that's all they want to talk about all day long is Charles Dickens. That's not a social interaction. So there's things like that. But like I said, when you know someone with autism, you know one person with autism. When you know someone with Asperger's, you know one person with Asperger's. There's no such thing as they all do this or they all do that, because that's just not the case. Like I said, with my little girl that I had in 6th grade, I can tell she has autism because she's got a really, a lot of people can tell because when you start speaking to her, she has a very monotone. She doesn't have any inflections in her, excuse me, in her voice. You just can't read her. She can't read you. You have to absolutely tell her exactly how you're feeling. If you give her a raised eyebrow, she doesn't really know that you're a little disappointed that she came in late or something. Things like that. But that's just her. Then there's others who, there's no such thing as what they used to say all the time, that they were like closed in and didn't get like to give hugs and didn't like to share feelings. That's not the case with every child with autism. You just can't, pigeonhole them like that. Your youngest is speakable needs on the spec. Our schools in our area have a great SPED program. Yes, every case is different. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you found a good place for them. About his only interest, Gina? Yeah, yeah. And some of those interests are amazing. I don't know if you guys heard about a man in Chicago, but there was this man in Chicago. He's been arrested several times because he is obsessed with trains, and he will get on the trains and he will conduct the train. And of course, they just, release him pretty quickly, and they already know him, but he's obsessed to the point that he has got to get on that train. I know it's funny to me, but it's just because I've been in that situation where I had one student who was obsessed with pirates and boats and ships, and he couldn't see anything that even reminded him of a ship, because he would get almost on a loop where that's all he would talk about was pirates and ships, pirates and ships. Temple is, yes, and I have not read her book. I need to get her book. I just saw it on my the department head's desk the other day, and I was like, why haven't I gotten that book yet? Until he was 5. Okay, but he started, right? He started. That's wonderful. Yes, yeah, that's very possible. I know I work with several, yes. And interesting, but in this field in special ed, sometimes they went through the system themselves, or they're the parents of people of children with special needs, and that kind of draws them into the field as well. And then I had a teacher I worked with, no, a parent, and she taught. She said, "But I don't want to teach special ed." She said, "I have that all day long." So everybody's different. Temple Grandin, yeah, she is. I haven't seen her movie either, but I've heard all about her. And she spoke here in Houston, where one of my colleagues actually spoke in the same arena that she did. It was an entire, it was a big, I think it was a 3-day thing here in our city at the Children's Museum. It was wonderful a few years ago. Yes. Let me see. Asperger's in 2008. Mm-hmm. You were a personal assistant for a 17-year-old with a brain injury. He could not remember if he hit 8. Yeah. But could recall songs he knew before. Wow. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, brain injury is a whole other thing, too. And we treated people with that as well. Absolutely. Very challenging, very challenging. And along with that, the personality can change quite a bit as well. They can go from being very grumpy people to very nice and the opposite of that. Yes, and get books on that, and get your children, if you have young children or grandchildren, get them to know as well. That's the wonderful thing that I know about the kids nowadays too, is that they're so open to differences. They are so wonderful that way. When we went, like the little boy that I told you did a speech about bullying, and it wasn't even about bullying, but it turned into that because we made it a little discussion, is that when you see a bully, whether it's because that child is in a wheelchair or that child drools or whatever, you do not listen to it without saying something. You don't join in because it's cruel, and that could be your brother, that could be someone you love, and someone does love that child. Someone cares for that child and expects you to care for them while they're with you for those 8 to 10 hours. And if you can't defend that, even, you can teach them when they're little, they do it. Mhm. Let me see. Praise the good, I know. I had to learn that too. When I used to read to my kids, and I remember someone telling me, "Don't correct them if they get that first 1 or 2 words wrong, or if they stumble on it, because then they won't wanna read." So just keep listening to them, and then when they, then put in a correction. But yeah, that's the number one lesson too. Always praise, and high praise, exaggerated praise as well. You were gifted, but your special problems got me excluded. Yeah. Oh my goodness, we have so many gifted kids with problems as well. I had a kid last year, genius level, 12-year-old, 12th grade reading level. But he couldn't function without insulting someone, without making fun of someone, without talking back to his teachers, without getting emotionally distraught about the tiniest thing. So, there's, like I said, splinter skills. Emotional issues are just another part of my job, because they may not have that learning disability, but they have an emotional disability where they can't. Or if they get something wrong when they've gotten everything right all their lives, they just have a breakdown if they can't handle it. It's crazy. It really is. But you have to talk them through that too, or they perseverate, what they call perseverate, where they just stay focused on that one problem. They are not leaving that problem until they figure out how to divide that last factor or something. It's crazy. He's 28. He's a musician. Awesome. Let me see. All right, guys, I really appreciate you turning this into a topic that was weighing on my mind. A topic that was weighing on my mind because I forgot to pick up my daughter, and I feel like really horrible about it, but she's fine. I made a bigger deal about it. I just hate forgetting things, I hate it. I hate for anybody to think that I don't care when I'm just trying to remember. I gotta go put gas in my car too. I don't want to have to do it tomorrow. I want to stop. All right, let me look back up here and see if I didn't miss anything. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's hard. It's hard to be fair, but you have to be. You have to be. Yeah, parents especially are not perfect. And my kids, I have two children that are parents now, and one of them actually wrote me a very nice, kind letter and said, "Now I know what you went through. Now I know how you worried about every single thing, and I so appreciate it." And so it's nice to hear those kinds of words. It really is, even though it's not said all the time. But when someone takes the time to say that to you, when your kid tells you that, even though they may feel it, but if you never verbalize what you feel, it's really sad. I know I try to tell my mother because she's with me, and I thank God for that every single day. And I try to tell her as much as I can every time I see her how much I appreciate what she did for us and how I think she's just a wonderful person. And I want her to know that. Because if you don't tell them, they won't know. They want to hear it. Thank you, Denise. Yeah, I wanted to take at least one day out of the week, and just make it a kind of a talk, give and take. I still haven't thought of a name. Like I said, you guys came up with some wonderful names, but I can't decide. Uh, I'm just all about words. The name has to be right. So I do appreciate you coming in and helping me with it. Yeah. Yeah, because we do beat ourselves up for nothing. Sometimes in the end, all you can do is your best. That's all you can do. It's different if you're not doing that. And believe me, I've found some parents who aren't doing it. They have checked out, unfortunately, and I feel so bad. I feel so bad, but I have had to call a social worker in. I have, and it makes me feel so heartbroken because, but I believe me, I tried to investigate everything first. I consult this and I consult, and if it's child abuse, and I suspect I don't have to consult anybody. I'm getting on that phone. But when I feel like there's neglect going on, or a parent that, and I have a lot of parents that literally had their babies probably at 14, and so they're still young and they're still partying and they're still, but I can hear it, I can see it. The stories that I hear are incredible. And when I see that kid is not coming to school or has been pulled out of school here and then back for a week, and I'm speaking up. I'm just not going to let it happen, even though I know they probably won't separate them, and maybe it's not, but counselors might come in. Something has to happen. I cannot turn a blind eye like that to something when I see something like that. I'm just not. The mother that tells me she doesn't have power to wake the 11-year-old up and get him to school, well, then maybe, an interventionist can come, and so maybe it's time for a psychiatrist. Maybe it's time for a new psychiatrist. And it's not all about money. There are free programs out there. Here in Houston, we are very blessed. We have a lot of programs where they will come in and help. They will help families in need. This lady is by no means in a financial crisis. There's just a psychological dynamic going on that, yeah, that's bad. And I had to do that. Still haven't heard back, but he hasn't come back to school. So I worry about him. I really, really do, because he was a good kid, and he was another one that he would pretend not to know anything because he didn't want to be there. He wanted to make trouble. He wanted the parents to get called and for him to go home. But I would sit there and just, you know what? I got all day. We're going to sit here. We're going to do this program because I know, because I hear you read, and I know these words. So you're not going to tell me you don't understand this program is trying to, test you in some way to show us where you're at, and, things that they need for their data. So I would sit there till we got it done. I have a lot of patience, I guess, because I just know what it's like to be around kids who don't want to be there, but they don't want to be there because they're afraid to show you they don't know something. They're afraid people are going to make fun of them. The parents may be in prison, maybe working all night long. They never check the homework because they're getting home at 10 o'clock. There's just so much going on. And then there's the rich kids. Hey, he's in Europe. Oh, she went out with her friends to Las Vegas and I'm home alone. That happens too. It's not just the poor kids that are having issues. Believe me, it's not just the underprivileged. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to let go. We've been on 50 minutes. It was a good convo, wasn't it? I enjoyed it. I hope you come back next Monday. We'll make it a different topic. You guys give me some feedback in the comment section. Let me know what kind of things you worry about as a mother or grandmother and whatnot, or what things you might be grateful for. I want to talk about gratefulness next time, and things that I feel I've lost touch with that I want to get back into because they brought me so much pleasure. And stress relievers. Oh my gosh, stress relievers. We all need those, don't we? Thank you, Lisa. I so appreciate it. And I really do appreciate all your comments. I go back and read them all. And there was so much, there were some really cute comments the other day when I found that necklace. I thought that might be a comment too. I mean, a topic. Because somebody said you could make up a love story with that pendant that said Te quiero mucho, Linda. And Linda, by the way, is not only a girl's name, but it also means beautiful. So maybe he was saying, hey, beautiful, I love you, Bill. I didn't tell y'all it was signed Bill. So all of that, we can talk about whatever. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up on the way in or out, guys. And again, give me your comments down below if you watch this later, or if you had something on your mind and I didn't get to read it. Now, but Kathy says, best thing a community can do is provide parenting classes. Absolutely. And visiting nurses for the first 3 years, it needs to be mandatory. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Young mothers, we are seeing that manifest today. We really are. And the broken families, lots of broken families. Even the ones that are together are broken, honestly. We're seeing a lot of that too. But, we're hanging in there doing our best. That's all we can do, because I know there's some winners in there. We're going to get them all. We're going to get them all on a good trajectory. At least we're going to get them on there. That's what my goal is. Did you really? Cool. That is good, Joellen. That's a good idea. I wish I had taken parenting classes too, because I'm not perfect, and I was not a perfect parent. And that's another thing we can talk about next time. Parental regrets, right? Yes. But that's just life, we are not perfect. By no means. All right, guys, have a wonderful night. I hope to see you here next time on Monday for another chat. All right.